getting up early with us or staying up late. However you are rolling on this particular Wednesday. A lot of stuff to dive into on the big show today. We have got Draft Nerd Analytics coming up in about 20 minutes. What is the position to draft? I know I'm obsessed with quarterbacks. You're obsessed with quarterbacks. The entire media is obsessed with quarterbacks. It's a cool position. But do the numbers add up? Is quarterback a safe draft? So we'll dive into some fascinating numbers heading into the draft. There will be 4 quarterbacks taken in the first round. Will there be 5? Will there be 6? I think there's going to be 5. I do not think that Bo Nix is going to fall behind both Denver and Minnesota. It's pretty clear Chicago, Washington, New England. Who else am I missing? Who's the 4th team? Who's going to take J.J. McCarthy?
Giants, maybe.
And New York. Or maybe one of those teams. But I think with the Broncos, Zach Wilson's not the future. They have to draft the future, right? This is where the draft gets a little bit tricky because it is not always in a vacuum. It is situations make things situational. I think that's how that phrase goes. Context is everything. It's one thing to be like, you get these draft grades back, right? Where is Bo Nix? We talked about this in the fall and into the winter when Bo Nix finally wrapped up his career at Oregon. It's like, where is Bo Nix? Where's Michael Penix? Where do these two guys end up? And, of course, we kind of put on our draft hats and we're like, I see him as maybe a late first, maybe a second round. But what's the context here? The context is the Denver Broncos had a divorce from Russell Wilson just after a couple of years. They are in absolute cap hell. They don't draft until number 12 because they didn't tank the season away because Russell Wilson played too well. They tried to then bench him and force him to rearrange his contract. He was like, nah, I ain't doing that. And so now they're in football purgatory, right? The Denver Broncos are sitting there in football purgatory, which is you don't have a quarterback, you don't have any cap space, you don't have any draft, you don't have any trade value, trade capital, because you traded it all the way to the Seattle Seahawks, and you need somebody to throw the rock, and right now your best option is Zach Wilson, whom you just traded for a 6th rounder. You know what that means? Bo Nix goes from late first, early second, to maybe potentially number 12 overall. Then you got the Minnesota Vikings as well. Same thing there. Like if you're the Vikings, do you trade up and try to make a move? Because the new formula in the NFL is going to be pretty simple. The formula is going to be this. You get a quarterback that comes in and pops, and you keep them on a rookie contract, and you pay for all the other weapons. Then you hope amongst hope that your quarterback turns out to be Patrick Mahomes. Because Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady in the last 8 years are like the only quarterbacks making maximum amount of money. Maximum money. That was a magazine from when I was at college. Did you ever get into, does your generation know about Maxim magazine, or was that gone by the time you became
pretty much gone
of age?
Magazines, come on, Justin. We barely had Sports Illustrated.
Well, Maxim magazine was a thing. It was a very influential publication in men of a certain age at that particular time. Anyways.
The internet was around, Justin, if you catch my drift.
Yeah, so the internet we had
little different.
It took some time. It took
in
some
those
patience.
Teenage years.
We didn't know what we didn't know, right? We didn't know that there was going to be at some point lightning fast. We were actually talking about this before we went on the air because it is very funny to me. Thinking back, we talk about context in the draft, talking about context in our everyday life. It is very funny to me that the moment the internet gets just a smidge slow, even me in my 40s who grew up in an era without internet, I talk about how there's going to be something in 10, 15 years that is going to happen. We can't even imagine it right now. It's going to happen. I don't know. Like, is it going to be driverless cars? Is it? It's going to be something we don't even know about. Because when I was growing up, the idea of the internet didn't even exist. The closest thing we had was Back to the Future 2, right? And Back to the Future 2 wasn't even the internet. It was just Back to the Future 2. Marty McFly was able to do essentially what FaceTime is now. Which, again, I find very fun. I'm ripping off somebody else's joke on this, but, Brenden, here's what's very, very, I think this is irony. I don't know. But when we were kids, if you were in your 40s now, when we were kids, all we wanted to do was to talk on FaceTime. We talked on the phone, right, on the landline, but some of the rich kids had call waiting. Most of us growing didn't have call waiting. But the idea that in Back to the Future 2, Marty McFly just goes home and he can talk to people on the screen. Boy, we would have given our left arm to know that technology was going to exist. And now to know that technology exists, Brenden, but we don't like it. Hey, you want to FaceTime? Nah, just text me, dude. I don't have the energy to FaceTime. I was like, what? This was the magic that Hollywood promised us back in 1991.
Okay, I have
that
some
we
issues.
would have given up everything for.
You're totally spot on, but I gotta call it out, Justin. Self-lacing Nikes have not been made available to everybody.
Didn't they have
They kind of
BB
exist, but then they kind of went away. I don't think they're really.
They weren't really that good.
Justin said it, so there you go.
They couldn't. Well, here was the problem. They couldn't get an actual basketball player to wear them.
Right. So that's tough. So that's one. Second, where's my hoverboard? Okay.
Yeah, hoverboards aren't going to happen. It's just not. They're not going to happen.
Where's my flying car?
I think
we have an advertisement.
I think
Justin.
Elon's working on that.
Okay. And then last but not least, where can I get a cool, dehydrated Pizza Hut pizza I just throw in the microwave and it's brand new?
But like we have that though, kind of. Not a pizza.
Yeah.
But we have like freeze-dried food, like preppers. Dude, the preppers have got it all. Like food that just lasts forever. We've also got like, have you seen the one? I don't have this. And if you have this, I'm judging you a little bit. But there's this thing that you can buy. It's a toaster oven, okay? But this particular toaster oven, you get food that comes with it, and you scan the QR code, and then you slide it in.
I've seen that.
And it's like, okay, you're paying like $4,000 for TV dinners. All right, we had that. It's called a TV dinner. All right?
That's too funny.
But it's like, oh, look, it's almost they're like trying to sell it like it's the future. And it's like, that's a TV dinner. But that's kind of like what, it's like, oh, it's meal prepped. And then, beep, you QR code. It's this delicious. It's like, yeah, that is. We had that. It was Salisbury steak. You ever had a Salisbury steak? Probably not a Salisbury steak guy.
No, not a big, not
It's a big deal when you had a TV dinner. Just pop it in the microwave, and then you got Salisbury steak, mashed potatoes, and corn. That was a good night when you got a TV dinner. Anyways, point being, when the internet was, again, in its infancy, and you had the dial-up, anything could throw it off. Like magazines were still, to look at pictures of hot chicks, which is kind of what we all wanted to do in middle school. Like that's what the internet was for. Still for that today.
Yeah, I was
Hello,
gonna say.
Instagram. Like there's a whole, like, oh, Instagram is so innovative. It was like, you mean they took magazines and put it on your phone. Like that's what Instagram is. It's like, how do I
Breaking news, Justin.
How do I look at hot chicks? We got breaking news?
Breaking news. Reggie Bush is getting his Heisman back.
Hey, how about
Sorry, I hate to cut you off there, but that seems big enough to
that is
stop
that is
everything.
big enough breaking news.
How about that? Good for you, Reggie. Here, you know what?
All right, I've got to. Yeah.
Give it to him. Gosh, he deserved it for so long.
Okay,
Now-
let me ask this real quick, because this is the first thing that popped into my mind. People have been campaigning for this for years. Johnny Manziel was the latest to come out. Now, it's funny that it was Johnny Manziel, who is kind of, he was an interesting character. in terms of winning the Heisman Trophy, but he came out and said, until Reggie gets his Heisman Trophy back, I'm not going back to the ceremony. That's always been one of the things about the Heisman is you get these former winners coming back, and it is really fun to watch. Welcome to the fraternity, right? And then you got the Heisman House commercials and all that. And Johnny Football says, until Reggie Bush gets his Heisman Trophy back, I'm not going back. And nobody really budged. And then they'll never admit this, but you want to know what I think pushed them over the edge? Not NIL. We've had NIL in our lives for 2 years. They could have given Reggie Bush his Heisman Trophy back. Not NIL. Not the NCAA losing its seat. You know what I think ultimately pushed them over the edge? Brenden, OJ died. OJ died, and the Heisman Trust put out the tweet. The tweet of we mourn the passing.
Kind of a thing. Yeah,
condolences to this. And boy, they got ratioed.
Yeah, and maybe
they got ratioed bigger than life. And all of a sudden, Reggie Bush is going to get his Heisman Trophy back now? I'm not saying it's the only reason, but I'm saying it's a reason.
Real quick, to this point, Justin, I'm sure we'll be talking about it more.
Yeah.
You mentioned it yesterday. I just want to mention it now. This is so the right thing because, again, I tell Justin all the time, there are two players in my mind, 28 years old, I've seen who just dominated college football and were unbelievable. And I give Reggie the nod because he was a skill position guy at a running back. The other one was Joe Burrow. But, Reggie Bush, Justin, what he did, and when I saw it with these two eyes, not sure I've seen anybody else do.
I saw it with my own actual two eyes in real life at Autzen Stadium in 2005. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how dumb it was to ever take the trophy away. And again, we're still going back to this old form of punishment. We're tearing up the show sheet. We're talking Reggie Bush next. 620 Rip City Radio. And I'll be the first to admit. I love college football. It is my favorite. You guys know that. You listen to the show. You know that I don't ever shut up about it. But it's not perfect. Never has been. And by the way, it never will be. And there's a lot of dumb stuff we do in college football. And normally, because I don't do the we and the us when I talk about my favorite teams, I don't do we and us. First off, I didn't attend University of Oregon, so I don't feel like I can say we. I also didn't play for the Blazers or the Steelers or the Braves, so I don't do the us thing. But I do feel like in the college football community, it is a we. We do a lot of stupid stuff in college football, and I think one of the dumbest things that college football and college sports in general does is the vacation of wins. You know those wins you had? You don't have them anymore. They're gone. Take them away as if that was some sort of punishment. And then that dumb idea finally crescendoed until it finally reached its ultimate peak dumbness, which was when the Heisman Trophy Trust went along lockstep with the NCAA, when they didn't have to, by the way, did not have to, and took away Reggie Bush's Heisman Trophy. He already had won the thing. He stood there at the podium with the trophy, gave a speech. His mom cried. I remember watching it. It was done. Moving on, moving forward. He would then go on to the NFL. Then there would be an investigation. More on that in a moment. And but the investigation would reveal that there was some improper benefits, which were against the rules. And the NCAA came down on USC, and they said, all right, 2004, 2005. Didn't exist. Didn't exist, guys. Take them away. Take down the banners. And here's the problem, because this is where the NCAA always got themselves in trouble, and why the NCAA right now has absolutely no teeth. The NCAA was kind of like a hall monitor. And then, like, at some point, everybody realized, well, the hall monitor actually has no authority here whatsoever. We can just do whatever we want. But for years and years and years, everybody was afraid of the hall monitor. So USC, who I do not believe wanted to erase and Control, Alt, Delete Reggie Bush out of every historical take the number 5 jersey that was jersey was retired. Take that down off from the what was that? It's not the rafters because it's at the Coliseum, but either way. But it had
on top of the stands, yeah.
Right there on top of the stand. Take that down. Like in the athletic department, not like the Seattle Seahawks who took down all the pictures of the old Seahawks, but essentially had to, they photoshopped Reggie Bush out of the family picture. Like your aunt's ex-husband, who's persona non, he has been photoshopped out of the family picture. And then the reason why these schools had to go along with this, because they were afraid that if they fought back and said, no, we're not going to do that, then the NCAA would come in with bigger punishments and bigger sanctions and could really put your athletic department behind the 8 ball. So they had to make a decision. USC had to be like, we liked Reggie. He was a good guy. Did he make some bad financial decisions when he was here? Yeah. But ultimately, no off-the-field problems. Didn't cause any trouble. Was a great Trojan who won a Heisman Trophy. Could have likely won 2 if Matt Leinart didn't win the other one. And is one of our greatest student athletes of all time. All he did was take some money early, based off of the potential of him becoming an NFL running back, which he did, and played for like 10 years. So the NCAA came in with their dumb I don't think the rules are dumb. I always thought the enforcement was dumb. You catch somebody breaking the rules, you should punish them, and taking away scholarships was a proper way back then. But the taking away of the historical records I thought was always really dumb. And the taking down of banners I thought was always kind of dumb. It's like, oh, the Michigan Fab Five. It's like, yeah, I remember those guys. Yeah, their banners aren't up, though. They might be back now, I think. It's like, but I remember watching those games, and I remember seeing them play back in the 90s. Yeah, those banners aren't up anymore. It's one of the dumbest things we do in college sports. And then the Heisman Trophy Trust went lockstep alongside with the NCAA and decided that they were going to get high and mighty sometime in the mid to late 2000s and say, yep, Reggie Bush, we are so disappointed in you. Yeah, OJ's got his Heisman Trophy, but he didn't take money. Might have killed 2 people, but he didn't take money. Looking back at almost nearly every Heisman Trophy winner, where there probably some under the table, but they weren't sloppy and they didn't get caught. Reggie Bush, we were going to make an example. We are so disappointed in you. And they took away his trophy and said, you can't come back to the ceremony anymore. And Reggie Bush voluntarily gave up. It's like, here, take it. Take the stupid trophy. And then finally, our eyes kind of got wide open. We're like, this is really, really dumb. So now it's interesting looking back as to what happened. I don't know the story perfectly, but I know enough people who covered the story, and I know enough people who were around college football at that time. So what happened was Reggie Bush did 2 things to lose this Heisman Trophy. First and foremost, his parents were gifted a house at a very, very, very low rent, if there was ever rent. There was a USC booster. His parents lived in a very nice house on a lake in San Diego, because Reggie Bush is from San Diego, just outside of San Diego. And some people were poking around going like, you guys are working class folk. This is a very extravagant house. And it turns out that a booster essentially gifted them a house for lease. Didn't give them a house. They leased it, knowing that ultimately Reggie Bush was going to be everybody thought he was going to be the number 1 overall pick, became the number 2 overall pick, and make a gajillion dollars. This is where Reggie got in a bit of trouble. USC famously had open practices from Pete Carroll to Paul Hackett, all the way back to McKay, right? Famously, because that was how USC recruited Los Angeles. USC would go to these high school kids and be like, yeah, you only have so many official visits, but you're right here in LA. Hey, come to practice.
Snoop Dogg came and rapped at their team meetings.
Yeah. But practices were famously wide open, right? It was a tradition at USC, which, yeah, could Cal or UCLA or Arizona State put like somebody dressed as a fan to observe their practice? But again, remember, this is pre-cell phone, pre-phone cameras. You weren't going to get much, but the entire practices were wide open, and they used it as a recruiting tool. Well, the problem was with opening up practices, you know who else used it as a recruiting tool? Wannabe agents. So wannabe agents would show up because it's LA, right? And you got a lot of people with a lot of aspirations, and they know that if I could get in with Reggie Bush or Matt Leinart or any of these USC or UCLA superstars, Ed O'Bannon, all those guys back in the 90s, if I can get in early, then I could represent them once they get their payday and I get that 3%, I'm made. But I got to get in early. And so they found, especially around those Pete Carroll years, boy, there were a lot of new agencies popping up. Ultimately, the NFL would say you'd have to have an agent that is accredited by the Players Association, but I believe back then there was a loophole. And so a couple of guys wanted to create new era sports. And they went to Reggie Bush and they said, here's what we're going to do, Reggie. We're going to take care of you. We're going to get you a car. They took him to Costco. I remember because Brenden, as you know, as a fellow Costco person, Costco takes everything back, right? Did you ever see the Christmas tree Costco hack? Have you ever seen that? Because you can buy a fake Christmas tree at Costco, and Costco famously will take anything back that is not. So people go in, they bought the Christmas tree at Costco, and then January, there was a line of people returning their fake Christmas trees. So essentially, they're just...
Well, you know me, Justin. I am 100% into the fake tree game, but I believe in ownership. So, yeah, that's pretty shallow. I'm not going to lie.
Could you, you go to Costco, you buy your Christmas tree, and then you're like, all right, it's January, we're going to take it back.
I'm sorry, that's shallow, man. Like, you got to keep the spirit of St. Nick in your house. Come on now.
But people do it because Costco takes everything back. Well... The reason they're able to take everything back is because we're all members, right? And they scan everything. And when they scan everything that you have ever purchased at Costco.
Yeah, you don't even need a receipt.
You do not.
It's in the cloud, baby.
Brenden, it's a very astute point. So when New Era Sports goes with Reggie Bush and says, hey, now again, remember, it's 2004, okay? You have to remember it's 2004. If I was telling you this story in 2024, you would be like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It's 2004. They took Reggie Bush to Costco, and they said, pick a TV. Now, Brenden, I know you were, what, 8 or 9 in 2004?
I remember it well.
Do you remember the gloriousness that was a flat screen TV? And like the status symbol that it brought, a flat screen TV. And not like today where you can buy, you can buy a 55-inch flat screen TV for like $300, right? It's...
Oh, better than that, Justin. Quick Google, 55-inch TV at Best Buy, $210.
All right.
So even less. But
if I was playing Price is Right, I would have been out.
But no, to your point, I remember it very distinctly because, like, back then... when it transitioned from the big tube TVs to the flat screens.
Yeah.
If you had a flat screen, Justin, you talked all the time about like going over to, what's his name's house who had everything in your neighborhood? You're like, was it the Shockies? I think you said
No, the Shockies had Nintendo.
Okay.
But then we had the Chitwoods who lived also in the cul-de-sac. They had a big screen TV.
Okay, so like I remember
big screen TV and full-size candy bars at Halloween.
Nice. Yeah, because I remember like when we got our flat screen TV and I brought friends over, it was just downstairs. It was like, you guys have a flat screen?
Yeah,
and
they must be rich.
And we were, but it was
they must be rich. Do they have a second story and a flat screen?
Yeah. It's true.
Rich?
It's true.
These guys are rich. But anyways,
second story.
But trying to tell in 2004.
Is that the class? You have a second story, you're rich, Justin? I like that. I might start running with that.
Dude.
If you have a second story, you're rich.
Dude, if I went over to a friend's house and their bedroom was upstairs, I thought they were so rich. I thought they were like
That's awesome.
The Rockefellers.
That might be like the best thing you've ever said. Anyway, back to your point.
Yeah, everybody in Winston had single-story ranch houses, right?
That makes sense.
Single-story ranch.
Yeah.
Like that's just what everybody built, and everybody had them, and we had them, and my friend Kellen Schaefer had that, and everybody had. And then you went over to somebody's house, like, whoa, they would have a family room, aka a den.
Like I remember,
and if it was wait, your bedroom is upstairs.
Yeah,
you're rich.
Yeah,
I
was
so
like
rich.
5 or 6 when we moved into my childhood home, Justin, and I'd grown up with a single-story house. And I can't tell you, because my sister had to have been like 3 at the time, and I must have been 5 or 6, how much we were like, a circle staircase in the house?
Dude.
And we ran up and down.
That was like uber rich.
Yeah,
That was like the top 1%. If you had one of the circular, if you had a spiral staircase.
It was kind of like a half circle. But it's like, we're like, oh my gosh, you could go upstairs. Like, yeah, to that point.
If I remember right, growing up, I stayed the night one night at Josh Birch's house. And Josh Birch's house had a den with and a spiral staircase to get down to the den. And I was like Josh Birchie is
Yeah.
rich. Turns out his dad was construction and could build all that
Yeah.
stuff. But I thought,
See,
he is rich.
I mean, you know this,
boy.
Justin. I had a few family members in wood products and things like that. They could build some houses.
I tell you, back to Reggie Bush.
But
So,
yes, back to your point. Staircases are for rich folk. Got that.
they were. I'm trying to show off here. Second story. But he got busted based off of a Costco TV. Because New Era, again, 2004, they bought him a TV at Costco. And they bought him a bunch of other stuff too. But the big thing was the flat screen that he bought at Costco. And it was all part of the deal that we're going to advance you this money. You declared to the NFL draft. We represent you. He declares for the NFL draft. I believe Lee Steinberg takes a meeting and goes, no, you're with me. Here's all the money that we're going to make together. Because I'm going to talk to Nike and I'm going to talk to General Mills and you're going to have a cereal and you're going to have a shoe and you're Reggie Bush. What are you doing with these clowns? And so he said, yep. Well, I'm out of college now. Can't really get hurt. Signed with Lee Steinberg, and New Era Sports said, we got the receipts. Like literal receipts. Costco, remember that TV I bought on my credit card? You still have that? They're like, we sure do. We're Costco. We'd like to use that in an NCAA investigation, please. That's how Reggie Bush got caught. But he now gets his Heisman Trophy back. That was the long way of talking about the Heisman Trophy, but it was one of the dumbest things that we've ever done in college sports, was take away Reggie Bush's Heisman Trophy. Just for fun, because I have said multiple times, for my money, and I know I'm biased because I am West Coast, I'm also biased because I saw it with my own two eyes, Reggie Bush is the greatest college football player in my mind, in history. There's a lot of arguments to be made for a lot of players, and I'm not saying that anybody else is wrong. For my money, Reggie Bush is the greatest. Brenden, I would like you to pull up, I believe it was USC versus Fresno State 2004, please. Could you pull up USC versus Fresno State 2004? It was at Fresno State. Does Google have those that box score readily available? Because
Was it the one where they won 50-42?
Was it 2004 at Fresno State?
This one was at USC.
Okay. Go to 2005 then. Go to the game at might have been at USC. Give me the line. Give me Reggie Bush's line from that 2004.
So this was November 19th, 05, and he had 294 yards. So it might have been that game.
294 yards rushing. What do you have return-wise? Did they have return-wise on there?
Punt returns, 2 for 16, then added 70 yards receiving. So, yeah, let me look at the previous year. Give me just a second here.
I want to say it might have been at Fresno State. He had like 500 and some yards, all purpose. It's the most impressive feat I've seen of a single player in a college football game. Now, again, I'm sure there are plenty of other things I'm missing, but
it was that game. It was that game.
294 yards on the ground.
Yeah, so over 300 scrimmage yards, 3 touchdowns. Return kicks and punts for 161 yards.
There we go. 161 return yards.
You'd be surprised how hard it is to find a good box score from 05.
Yeah. The kick returns are the hard one to find.
But yeah, no, he cooked. So again, 294 yards rushing, 3 passes for 70 yards receiving, and then returns and kicks for a combined 161. So almost 500 yard total offense.
Unbelievable. All right, we've got Round Ball Rock. We're going to talk some NBA playoffs coming up in just a bit. But before we do that, I do want to tell you about the good folks at DeBella. That's right. It is Oregon's roofing, siding, windows, and bath experts. And right now in the spring, it is time to update your home and, well, save some money on your energy bills. Why? Go with solar. Solar shingles from DeBella can offer you federal and state incentives, plus also saving money on your utilities. They've got all the details on the incentives. All you got to do is check out DeBella. Amazing financing opportunity of no payments until 2025. So contact DeBella today, your roofing, siding, windows, and bath experts. Proud supporter of Operation Homefront. Of course, I'm talking about DeBella. All right, wrapping up hour number 1. 3 games in the NBA last night saw finally a couple of road teams get some wins. I love game 1 overreaction, and then because this is what is the best about the NBA playoffs, it just takes one night, and all of a sudden it's like, ooh, it's a much different series than I thought. So the Mavericks and the Pacers both steal wins on the road. The Suns look like they are in a bit of a pickle. And here come the Timberwolves as well. Plus, more games coming up tonight in the NBA. So we debate and discuss. It is time for Round Ball Rock. Here we go. All right, let's start in Minnesota. The Timberwolves, they get a 105-93 victory over the Phoenix Suns. All right. Again, don't want to overreact. Don't want to overdo it, but it's just human nature, especially in the NBA, with the new money rules with the first apron and the second apron and all the other things that they've done to essentially try to eliminate the super teams, which have mostly worked. The Suns were really one of the first teams that just said, we're going all in. Yep, we're going to pay unbelievable amounts of luxury tax. We're going to try to pay everybody, and we've got star power. The star power is going to make up for the fact that we really don't have much depth and much of a bench. And they went all in. And I foolishly thought, well, now that the Suns have both Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, put them in the NBA Finals right now. Put them in the NBA Finals. And it really hasn't been the smoothest of sailing. So let's fast forward a little bit. Let's just say the Minnesota Timberwolves split the games in Phoenix. They get one win in Phoenix, come back home, gentleman sweep, right? What happens to the Suns? Can they afford to continue with the way that this whole roster has been constructed? Like, what happens with the Phoenix Suns? How much longer does Kevin Durant stick around? Kevin Durant, who, by the way, famously not committed, right?
It's a good point.
He's famously committed, or non-committal, I should say. Now, again, that's saying a lot. Also, let's give flowers to the team that won, and let's give tip of the cap to the Minnesota Timberwolves. I'll admit, Brenden, of all the uniforms or Magic bias that I have, probably the biggest is with the Timberwolves. I'm just not used to seeing the Timberwolves be good. I'm not used to seeing Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert be effective. I'm not used to the Timberwolves being a factor. And even though they were the number 3 seed in the West, they won 56 games. They won 56 games in the regular season. I'm just not used to. I know it's early. Brenden, the Timberwolves might be for real. Timberwolves might be for real. And by for real, I'm not saying win the NBA Finals. I'm saying for real is that I don't think you can count them out. And I think if they match up against the Nuggets, I think they could give them a series.
I think they could too. As time goes on, and this is going to sound really petty, Justin, but I know we're here for it. I think the timing of this ownership thing is going to be a massive distraction for the Minnesota Timberwolves because you think so? You don't know who's running the ship right now. If you're Anthony Edwards, you're like, oh,
I don't think Anthony Edwards much cares about any of that. Maybe some of the other players who are like maybe in contract talks. Maybe here's where I would maybe coaching. I don't know
because I believe mediation is set for this week. Actually, I think it's today. So I'm excited to see how that turns out. And supposedly Mark Lowry and A-Rod feel they have a very strong case. And someone I read said because Adam Silver and Timberwolves owner Glenn Taylor are super tight. They're close.
Yeah.
Good relationship. And I read an article this week, Justin, that said if A-Rod and Mark Lowry did not have a leg to stand on, Adam Silver would be ripping them. The NBA would be ripping them because the fact that the NBA is like not saying anything, they don't know how this is going to play out.
Do you think it's buyer's remorse or seller's remorse, I should say?
100%.
Do you think it's seller's remorse from Glenn Taylor, who is just like, oh my goodness gracious.
We're good again.
I can sell this franchise that has been stuck in mediocrity, not even mediocrity.
For 20 years.
For one run, I think, with Kevin Garnett, where they made it past the first round. I think other than that, the biggest Minnesota Timberwolf highlight was Patrick Beverley winning the play-in. But like they have been
the big Kevin Love days didn't do anything.
Stuck in the mud, and it's like I can sell this, I can make my billions, and I could go. I could buy an island somewhere and just live out the rest of my days. Everything financially for generations that my family is set up. We're good. What? We might have the face of the NBA on our team because Glenn Taylor. I don't know him personally. I don't know him at all. But I would imagine you don't get to the point where you own a basketball team if you're not somewhat of a savvy businessman. And a savvy businessman would look around and go, hey, every year the Forbes puts out the values of these franchises. You win a title, your value goes way up. And I said this multiple times. The Golden State Warriors were never a valuable franchise. Never a valuable franchise, the Golden State Warriors. Then guess what? They won a title. And then they won another one.
I mean, yeah.
And then they won another. And yeah, nobody's expecting the Timberwolves to go on some crazy dynasty run. But you win a title, all of a sudden your value, it might be $500 million.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty cut and dry here. I mean, I don't like the way that he did it, where it's like, hey, we're going to tell A-Rod and Mark Lowry supposedly on the last day, oh, yeah, you guys are done. And, just he kind of snaked his way through. A little really sidewinder, kind of really hid behind the legality of it. So that part I'm not thrilled with. But from what I've heard, A-Rod and Mark Lowry want to just cut the payroll. And Glenn Taylor's like, yeah, you guys don't have the money to pay for this championship-level team, which they are. All right, so, interestingly enough.
Real quick, Pacers bounce back. They get a win. Are the Bucks in trouble?
Take that, Dame.
Are the Bucks in trouble? Now, Dame did play well last night. What a day. He dropped in 34, and he shot 6 of 13 from 3. Dame did everything that you would expect of him. But that Milwaukee Buck defense, when you allow 44%, and more importantly, allow the Pacers to shoot 55% and have a throwback the clock game for Pascal Siakam to come in and drop 37 on you.
Told you he was good.
Wish I had him 3 years ago.
I know, and maybe OG.
Maybe him too. But Pacers bounce back, and the Bucks, they need Giannis. They need Giannis in the worst way. And then in the nightcap, you saw that the Dallas Mavericks, they bounced back as well, and they took down the Clippers. Clippers get Kawhi back, doesn't matter. That's a 7-game series. That's got 7 games written all over it. All right, we have got hour number 2 coming up. We have got Make or Miss. We got stuff we saw on the internet. Maybe some NFL draft talk as well. That's all next on 620 Rip City Radio. It is 7 a.m. on a Wednesday morning. Justin Myers with you. Breaking news, just over an hour ago, the Heisman Trophy Trust has decided to reinstate the 2005 Heisman Trophy back to Reggie Bush. He will now have his Heisman Trophy returned and be granted all Heisman Trophy privileges. Don't know what that means, but he gets to come back to the ceremony, and everybody is all cool with it. The whole magic in the NBA came to an end last night as the Indiana Pacers knocked off the Milwaukee Bucks. Pascal Siakam with 37 points, 125-108. That series tied up at a game apiece. Same in Los Angeles. The Dallas Mavericks take down the Clippers 96-93, evening up that series. Timberwolves take a 2-0 lead over the Phoenix Suns. Tyson Alger, friend of the program from the I-5 corridor, joins us in hour number 3. But a jam-packed hour number 2 starts right now at 620 Rip City Radio. Hey, welcome back to Rip City Mornings, everybody. Happy Wednesday. So Reggie Bush has got his Heisman Trophy back. A day to celebrate doing the right thing, a day to celebrate common sense, a day to celebrate what else goes along with common sense? Decency. The idea that his Heisman Trophy was ever taken away was pure silliness. It was administrative. It wasn't even a judgment call. It was an administrative decision that the Heisman Trophy made, and they could have stood their ground and just said, yeah, technically he was ineligible, but we already gave away the trophy. We're not taking it back. Plus, the reason why this whole thing was kind of dumb, one, I'm on the record, vacating anything, taking away what already happened is dumb. Taking trophies back, taking banners down, scrubbing the record books and scrubbing the history of your athletic department to appease the NCAA back in the history. It does nothing. It's the dumbest thing, one of the dumbest things that we do in sports, right? Go back, let's eliminate Reggie Bush. They're all those stats, those are gone. That Heisman Trophy, we're going to need that back, sir. Like taking trophies back, vacating championships, because other than in some dusty old record book in Indianapolis, does anybody not think USC won the national title in 2004? I remember watching the Orange Bowl. They beat the absolute tar at Oklahoma. Does anybody think that didn't happen? Yeah, I mentioned the Fab Five, right? The Fab Five, so they didn't make the Final Four 2 years in a row? Those banners are down. It must not have happened. Man, my memory is getting, it's one of the dumbest things we do. Could you imagine when you were a kid growing up and you got in trouble and it was like, all right, you are 11 now. You are in trouble. Your punishment, we're taking away your 10th birthday. But I still have all those memories. I don't care. Remember that trip to Abby's? With all your friends, it's gone now. It doesn't exist. We have taken it back. Your 10th birthday no longer happened. It's like, yeah, I was at Abby's with my friends, and then we went and we played some two-hand touch football afterwards, and maybe played some video. Nope, didn't happen. And if you keep it up, I'm gonna take away Christmas when you were 9. It's like, do I get to keep all the stuff? Yeah, but those are gone though. So it's one of the dumbest things we do. So Reggie Bush has his Heisman returned. There was also another cloud hanging over all of this the entire time that, interestingly enough, was not in the article that was written by, I think Pete Thamel was the first to report this. Pete Thamel had this in the holster, too. He was just ready for the announcement. He had the Reggie Bush quote. He had everything. Because I didn't really see this happening today. There wasn't like some sort of momentum. It was just like, boom. I'm telling stories about what I thought rich kids had back in 1987. And Brendan's like, Reggie Bush got his Heisman Trophy back. And I'm like, all right, let's dive into that.
Every now and again, we get some breaking news, Justin. It's so rare, but every now and
Pete
again.
Thamel had the whole thing just written out, ready to go. But there was another part of this the entire time that we all knew and we all thought, and some people even said, but it wasn't in the article, and it's probably not going to be reported on ESPN. But the entire time, we all were sitting there going like, all right, so Reggie Bush doesn't have his Heisman Trophy. But OJ does? That
The Heisman
was
doesn't
always the
recognize
thing.
civil court cases, Justin. That must be it.
It was always a part of this, though. As weird
am I wrong?
and as awkward and as nuts as it sounds, I will die on this hill that Reggie Bush had his Heisman Trophy taken away, and anybody with half a brain cell went, "Are you taking away OJ's?" And the Heisman Trophy not only did not take away OJ Simpson's Heisman Trophy, but they also threw out a condolence email when he passed. Now, I'm not saying you should dance on the person's grave, but sometimes you don't have to say anything. But you cannot tell me that was not a factor. I refuse to believe it. Nobody thought this was a good idea. And yeah, I know. Some people maybe screaming at the radio or their phone or YouTube. Hey, YouTube, what's going on? And saying Justin, this is an NIL thing. All right, player, he got paid, and now players can get paid. And yeah, but a lot has changed, in college sports, right? I think we look very differently on, how do I say this? Weed. It's the NFL draft. Weed used to be the worst thing you could do. If you go to the NFL draft and you suspecting, all the way back to Dan Marino. Dan Marino.
Well, wasn't he something else?
No, that was just weed.
Oh, I thought they said he was into the old cocaine, too.
I didn't think so. I don't know if I want to besmirch Dan Marino's name. Now, maybe played for the Dolphins in Miami. I don't know, maybe in the 80s, maybe after the fact. But I do know that the biggest reason in that draft that Dan Marino fell down the draft board past my beloved Pittsburgh Steelers was rumors that he smoked weed at Pitt. And it was like...
So I was right. It turned out that it was not accurate. But heading into that
82 draft?
82 draft,
Boom.
some teams had thought that Dan Marino had a drug problem.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously...
How different is that in 2024?
Flat wrong.
Could you imagine... Could you imagine one of the top 3 quarterbacks, whether it's Drake May, Caleb Williams, or Jaden Daniels, and all of a sudden, as an NFL fan of a team that has one of those picks, you go he might have smoked weed. We do not care. But that used to be a huge thing in the NFL. Warren Sapp, that was one of the knocks on him. Warren Sapp, when he was coming out of Miami, there was nobody better in terms of a defensive lineman in college football. He was an absolute monster. Had a positive weed test. Fell down the draft board. Randy Moss had a lot of things. And if you go back and look, there was, he did some dumb things, but also kind of got railroaded a little bit. But one of the things, Randy Moss, I think he was picked in the 20s. I think he was 24th overall.
Draft selection?
Yeah. But one of the reasons was it was
21st.
21st overall.
98, baby. Peyton Manning led that draft.
Ryan Leaf was picked second.
Yes, true.
But that was the thing. Randy Moss, weed. Rumors were he smoked weed. That's why he got kicked out of Notre Dame, right? There was also an assault trial, and he got in a fight with a kid at school, and he won the fight. And,
but knowing what we know now, could you imagine Dan Marino being even looking at Dan Marino back then, we all knew his crazy cool hair, and that's a stretch to me.
But it's
yeah.
But again, it's
it was
kind of goes back to the Reggie Bush Heisman thing. It's now it's to try to explain to someone why Reggie Bush ultimately got scrubbed from USC's athletic history was a TV from Costco. Like, because that's kind of what it came down. That was other stuff too, but the TV from Costco was the smoking gun because they had the receipts. Could you imagine that now? Like,
Be nothing.
and that's the same thing with like. Remember Laramie Tunsil? Laramie Tunsil, because they had the extortion, like he was being extorted because somebody had a video of him smoking a huge bong out of a gas mask, and they essentially threatened and said, "Hey, unless you pay us $2 million or something, we're going to release the video." And he was like, "Fine, release the video." And he released the video, and everybody was like, "Is that Laramie Tunsil with a gas mask bong?" I think we should draft him anyways. And turns out they were right because he's like super good.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of which, I mean, to that point, I remember in middle school when Michael Phelps was the biggest thing around.
Oh yeah, Michael Phelps
and
got
when it
suspended
came out
for
that
weed.
Michael Phelps
There's a picture.
was hitting a bong in some party, everyone's like, how could just this person that the American hero, all the gold medals, and then you go like 5 years later, and it's like, to Justin's point. For me, I've seen, I was born with the internet, born mostly with cell phones. To me, one of the most shocking things where I can go life before, life after is weed.
Yeah.
Because like I distinctly remember, Justin, like when Michael Phelps, it was he Michael Phelps, man, he did it. It's horror, like just all over. And then
there is a history, and it's not just
kind of interesting.
It's not just Dan Marino and Warren Sapp and a little bit of Randy Moss as well, but there is a history of like teams getting such good value at players because they fell down the draft board because stuffy owners were worried about a weed test. Like there's all like, I think it was you know who Matt Taibbi is. Matt Taibbi was is a writer. He's right for Rolling Stone. I think he's got a Substack now. He had a whole theory on like NFL draft, draft the weed guy, because it turns out you're gonna be fine.
I'm curious, Justin.
Tyrann Mathieu, remember Honey Badger?
Yeah.
He fell down the draft. He had a pretty good NFL career. He still does.
I'm curious if that was different with that substance policy, does a guy like Josh Gordon be a different player? You probably remember,
Yeah.
I mean, you obviously remember him when he was with the Seahawks for a couple years, but
Yeah.
like that guy, one of the most talented receivers we've seen, and was suspended pretty much each year for, we all know.
And I think the thing with Josh Gordon that a lot of people were like, all right, all you have to do is just prove that you can and he couldn't. And
you know what I
that's
mean?
that's one we might look back and be like, what were we doing? All right, coming up next, in about 40 minutes, 30 some minutes, we're going to have stuff I saw on the internet. My mind was blown yesterday by something I saw on the internet.
Excited
but
to hear it.
Mine's going to be blown coming up next because we have got Make or Miss on 620 Rip City Radio. All right, coming up in an hour from now, Tyson Alger is going to be joining the show from the I-5 corridor. Oregon's got a spring game coming up on Saturday. So far, so good down in Eugene. Haven't heard any transfer portal news. Dan Lanning, we're competing every day. We're just trying to get better. But we'll talk to Tyson Alger coming up in an hour. We got some stuff I saw on the internet coming up in about 20 minutes. Also, the big news this morning, at least it's big news for us. Reggie Bush has had his Heisman Trophy reinstated, which got me on a just a rabbit hole of going back and looking at Reggie Bush stuff. And I was trying to remember. I watched Reggie Bush play against Oregon at Autzen Stadium 2005. And Oregon was pretty good that year. Oregon ended the season 10-1. Kellen Clemens would break his leg, and a couple of backups named Dennis Dixon and Brady Leaf would take over and ultimately lead them to a 10-1 record. They would lose in the Holiday Bowl to a guy named Adrian Peterson from Oklahoma. But I remember that game. USC was the number one team in the country. They were the rock stars of college football, and they came into Autzen Stadium, and Oregon goes up, Brenden, up 13-0. Second quarter, it's 13-0. Is this going to be the greatest upset maybe of all time? Now, Oregon was number 24 team in the country. They were pretty good. USC rattled off 45 unanswered. 45 unanswered, including, I think, a 14, 15-yard run. Reggie Bush had his shoe stripped off and then shook an Oregon defensive back out of his own shoes with a sock.
If memory serves,
he gave a little whoop,
yeah.
Whoop, whoop.
No,
and it's like,
true.
well, I'm like, he's got one shoe on and he's still making ridiculous moves.
No, and I forgot how that was a great Oregon team. But Justin, to your point, if memory serves, y'all didn't get over the USC hump until 2009, Pete Carroll's last year.
Yeah, boy, did we.
Compared
I just
to,
said I don't say we, but man,
boy,
did they.
I'm like, because I'm looking, I'm like, oh, number one USC came to Autzen. Number one USC came to Reser Stadium and left a loser.
That is true.
A couple years later.
Oregon beat USC in 2007.
Were they?
I don't think they were like 4 or 5. I think they were something like that.
I have it in front of me. Let's look.
Oregon versus USC 2007.
9.
They were 9. That's a top 10 win.
But,
That's a top 10 win, Brenden.
I'm like, number one. That's Oregon State's thing, man. We're going to hold that for a long time, especially, since they'll never play USC again.
Never.
So, just going to throw that out there.
Never going to play them ever again. But
also, I saw, Justin,
45 unanswered.
A little random before we start make or miss, because why
Best
not?
team to never win a championship, USC 05. Got to be up there.
After the news last week with OJ passing, you'd be surprised how many Oregon State fans came out of the woodwork and were like, I was there in
Giant
1967 when Jess Lewis tackled him and they beat him 3-0. And it's like, there were so many Beaver fans in the last week that were like, yeah, 67, I was there, man. 67 was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago.
A long time ago.
All right. That being said, let's dive into Make or Miss. Now, you were pretty young, and it was a game in the fog.
04. Yep.
In 04. Reggie Bush did have a punt return for a touchdown in that game.
Yes.
But it was closer. Like,
so when
Reser/Parker was always kind of one of those places for USC, right? Kind of like Arizona basketball never wants to go play at Gill. And again, this is what we lose with the stupid conference realignment is for whatever reason, and not always, but like Caleb Williams, they were in a close ball game there at Reser Stadium 2 years ago. Obviously the Mark Sanchez upset, the John David Booty upset.
Yep.
I can go back to, I remember when the year 2000, before we knew what the 2000 Oregon State Beavers were going to become, USC was very good. It's
a coming out party.
And I went to that game because obviously.
You saw the possum then?
I saw the possum.
Yeah. How about that for memory?
That was one of the best football days of my life. I went to Oregon-Washington kicked off at 12:30 at Autzen Stadium. I went to that
Oregon
game.
won. Yeah.
Oregon beats Washington, takes down Marquez Tuiasosopo. Matt Smith with a deflected pass to end the game. We hop in our car, beat traffic, hit 99 north, and then I get to Corvallis to watch Oregon State USC because Troy was playing for USC, and it was one of his first games. I was a sophomore year.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm like, well, yeah, Oregon just beat Washington. Or USC is going to destroy Oregon State. This is going to be a great But 2000 Beaver team's pretty good.
They were.
Didn't know that at the time, but
they were.
Learned that real fast.
Yeah, and to that point, Justin,
But that was like a 2000.
Yeah.
There's a handful, like, that's just been a spot.
Yeah,
and we lose all this fun with stupid greed.
I think notoriously
conference realignment.
It's always been like, I think it's just the way to get to, like, Corvallis, as you know, Justin, you're not staying in town. Your team is in Albany or Lebanon. You know, you can't fly.
Mostly Eugene, too.
Or Eugene. You can't fly into Corvallis as a team. So it's just, I've always heard, like, why is Oregon State a little unique? And it's like, it's a tough place to play despite having, 35,000 fans. I think it's just because Corvallis is kind of tough to get to. But to your point, Justin, I had to make sure I had it right. But the 8-year-old Brenden remembers very vividly sitting in the stands with Dad. Justin, third quarter, Oregon State, 13-13, tied up with USC.
We're in this. It's a fog. It's a fog bowl. They can't see.
I should say that 14-13 UXC. Excuse me, after the extra point. Reggie Bush returns that punt. Oregon State loses 28-20. That's the difference in that game.
There it is.
I remember it well, and yeah, like. Did you ever have a game like that at Autzen Stadium? I'm sure there were. Where, like, I can distinctly remember being on the west side of Reeser Stadium, probably 15 rows up, and being like, Dad, I can't see anything because of the fog. And then I heard from Mike Parker.
05 Civil War.
Oh, that's the one.
05 Civil War.
That's the Ryan Gunderson? CW?
I think so.
Yeah, man. Shout out Beebs OC.
But, yeah, 05 Civil War, couldn't see a thing.
I wasn't at that game.
Could not see a thing.
But I think I remember that one on TV.
Well, nobody saw it on TV. Like, it was on TV, but nobody saw it. I remember we were up in the press box, and you know this being up in the press box. I don't know if people know this, but there's the PA announcer for the stadium, right? It's Don Essig at Autzen. Who is it at Oregon State? Who's the PA announcer? Who's your first down?
Yeah,
Who's that guy?
Oh my God, his name's on the tip of my tongue. I apologize. I'm butchering it at the moment. Yeah, I can't think of it.
Either way. But also, inside the press box, there's also somebody talking, saying, like, the actual official stats. It's Greg Walker at Oregon. Is it Callan?
Oh, Ron doesn't do
No, Ron Callan does it with the Seahawks.
Yes.
Ron Callan.
Yes. I'm totally like, I can see his face, and right now I'd be like, Brenden, how can yeah, it's just one of those moments.
Anyways, but I remember being up there, and both Don Essig, the stadium announcer, and Greg Walker, who does the PA announcing in the press box, and it was like a pass complete to someone we don't know. Like, literally nobody could see anything in that fog bowl.
Well, I'll say this. Looking at the box score, a 56-14 win. I think Oregon saw a little bit better than Oregon State did that game. And again,
I want to say Jonathan Stewart had a pretty good game.
He cooked. Terrence Whitehead had a big game.
They had so many good running backs, and it was like, fog bowl, great. We're just going to run all game.
Oh, man.
And Oregon didn't have Kellen Clemens then because he had a broken leg, so they just ran the ball in the fog.
Ryan Gunderson at quarterback, Mike Hass catching passes, man. That I don't know if there's a.
I know Mike Hass is still around.
He is. I think he's a Nike guy.
If we ever get Mike Hass on the show, I have to tell him. Mike Hass got me into a bar fight one time.
Let's work on that. I'll have to work on that because that'd be pretty cool.
Because he doesn't know me at all. We've never met, but he got me into a bar fight. Because I had some hot, spicy takes back in 05, and the Beaver fan saw me at a bar and was not happy that I was talking bad about Mike Hass and got me into a bar fight. That was awkward.
Hey, man,
anyways,
Beaver fans will defend Mike Hass like their own son. Man.
I learned that one day as I'm now in a shoving match in a bar, and I'm like, "What? I don't know you, dude." Like, this said some words I can't say on the radio.
Yeah. So, like, was it like a legit bar fight or just like some pushing?
It was shoving? Pushing that was escalating, and then we were both escorted out forcibly.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, to that point, Justin, I think
I don't do bar fights, Brenden, because I I don't like leaving the bar. And I know that once you get in a bar fight, you're out.
Yeah.
But
I think it was that year, but yeah, it's like you don't know why, Justin, because in a single season or career, Mike Hass is still the dude. Like he's 4,000 career or receiving yards, and
it was a little bit like back then, like Odunze and Penix. Not to obviously the national championship level, but Gunderson anytime just threw it up and Hass came down with it. At least that's what it felt like to me. I'm sure there was a lot more skill involved. I'm sure there was a lot more precision. I'm sure there was a lot more homework. But it felt like Gunderson gets in trouble, he just chucks it, and Hass comes down with it every single time.
Yeah, so mostly Andrew, because Gunderson didn't play a whole lot.
Or not Gunderson.
Or Matt Moore.
More.
And
it's just every third down, it's like all he does is throw to him. Of course, he's got all the yards. And I think that was part of my spicy take. And Beaver fans were not happy about it. Turns out also I learned later, like, catch that many footballs for a reason.
No, he's really.
But I was like, all they do is just throw it up to him. It was like, of course he has all the receiving yards. They don't have anybody else. And I was like, I think I said he wouldn't sniff the field at Oregon. I was wrong. But I was young and dumb, and I was a spicy take guy. And in
a lot of ways,
guy wanted to fight me.
And I know this is kind of. I mean, you guys ended up having a player like that a couple years later. It was Jeff Mail, right? I mean, kind of. Just a real
white guy receiver.
Yeah, and possession guy. Possession.
We know what you mean by possession guy, Brenden.
Try it.
We know what you mean. All right, great route runner.
But let's go ahead and get into make or miss.
Sneaky fast, not
sneaky fast. Let's go ahead and start here, Justin. I got to give you some context for this one because this is going to be kind of tongue in cheek, but very fun and relevant. So, do you remember? Well, obviously, I'm sure you know. Do you know that Reggie Bush is basically the main spokesman for Wendy's and their commercials?
I am aware.
So a couple years ago, they made a commercial where they were advertising their pretzel bacon pub burger.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And they had a fun play on. So this was 2022. So remember the timing here. The make or miss is Wendy's Reggie campaign may have been oddly effective. And I say this because they played it out as like, Reggie Bush had something taken from him.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to bring it back to him. And he's got his eyes
closed. The pretzel bacon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
or the pretzel bun burger.
As tongue-in-cheek as that is, and you're like, haha, funny, it makes you wonder, Justin, how many people my age and younger who didn't watch Reggie Bush were then like, oh, I'm going to Google Reggie Bush and see what was taken away from him.
Yeah.
Like, there could be something there.
There, like everything else in this world, there's multiple facets and multiple variables to everything. There is not one, hey, NIL's legal, Reggie Bush gets his Heisman Trophy. Now, that's part of it. The OJ thing is part of it. Sorry, it is. But, yeah, part of it is just, I think most people recognize how dumb it was to take it away in the first place. And the fact that Wendy's 2 years ago could joke about it and that Reggie Bush could go along with the joke probably started the ball rolling. But it was a combination of, I think, years later looking back, go like, did we really take Reggie Bush's Heisman Trophy away? Just like, you know what? I think we're going to really look back, and you'll love this. Can you imagine explaining to someone that the NFL suspended Tom Brady 4 games for deflated footballs?
Do we think that would have made a big difference?
I mean, can you but that was, and like at one point we finally all looked at it like, wait, 4 games? What about the guy domestic violence? 4 games as well. So the same deflating footballs is the same domestic violence. Got it.
So no disrespect to Andrew
But
Luck.
like that's what we're talking about, all-time dumb things, right? Reggie Bush's Heisman being taken away is up there. I would say Tom Brady being suspended 4 games for deflating footballs, allegedly, on a freezing cold day in Baltimore, by the way. Was it Baltimore? I think it was Baltimore.
It was in...
Was it Indy?
It was in New England, but they played Indianapolis. That was the...
Okay, they played against the Colts, but it was in New England. It was freezing cold.
Yes.
And like some scientist came out and was like, guys, that's the display air. Like, this is cold. That's what.
So I'm no
what it
expert, Justin, but again, I love Andrew Luck. But again, when everybody, because I remember at that point, it was like no one quite knew. And again, yes, folks, for those of you at home, go let the air out of a football. It is easier to grip and easier to throw.
Yeah.
But I'll look at this, Justin. The score was 45-7.
I know.
LeGarrette Blount almost had 200 yards on the ground.
Did he fumble, though?
3 touchdowns.
Did he fumble?
Box score's not smart enough to tell me that.
Well, let's just assume he didn't fumble. Probably because of deflated footballs.
So I'm just saying, like, I throwing the ball, sure, but the Patriots crushed that.
Like
There's no
said,
chance. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing you got to remember, and you maybe didn't understand it at the time because you were in your full-on Brady fandom.
It's true.
The rest of us hated him. Hated him.
It's fair.
Everybody else in football, like, if it was anybody else, there would have been such a movement of, like, this is the dumbest thing. What does Roger Goodell do? But the fact that it was Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, and it was like, see, deflate. They spied on the Jets. They were filming practices. They're also deflating. They're cheaters, right? That was the whole thing. And then looking back with clearer eyes, you go like, yeah, that might have been the dumbest thing NFL's ever done.
Yeah. So do you think
one of the dumbest things the NFL's ever done?
Yeah, no, for
Just
sure.
like the dumbest thing a Heisman Trophy ever did was take back a trophy that they gave to Reggie Bush.
And back to that point, like, again, when you take it all, the tongue-in-cheek Wendy's commercials, you mentioned the OJ tweet. When you put it all together.
Also, Johnny Football saying, like, this is dumb. I'm not going back.
You put all 3 together. Do you think they were a part of why we are where we are today? Yeah. All the other stuff.
And plus the NIL being a factor.
Yeah, which, again, wasn't it like a year ago where they issued a statement saying we're not
I think so.
Yeah, which is, again, I love being able to
prove
the man wrong, Justin. And right here, you prove the man wrong.
There's also the NIL, but then I think also on top of that, the realization that the NCAA has no authority.
No.
And that was the reason why they took it away in the first place, is because they didn't want to upset the apple cart. They didn't want to upset the hall monitor in the NCAA. All right, do we have one more?
Let's see. Ooh, yeah, that's a good one. Super teams aren't the path to a championship. Looking at you, Phoenix.
Yeah, they can't. Now, LA Clippers, though. LA Clippers might be an asterisk there. If the LA Clippers end up winning the West. Now, they lost last night.
Are they a super team?
Yes, 100%. They got Kawhi Leonard, they got Paul George, they got James Harden, and they did not draft any of them. That's, to me, by definition, a super team, I would say. If you have 3 All-Stars or All-NBA guys, and you didn't draft any of them,
I'll say this.
You're a super team. So we'll see. If the Clippers end up going to the NBA Finals, we may have to revisit this and go like, are super teams dead?
So, I think we need to categorize super teams slightly, Justin, only because I totally agree with you. But to your point, like, the reason I like the Clippers more than the Suns, Clippers got a darn good bench. We were talking the other day. We're like, who's on the Suns bench?
I think by definition, though, average Joe fan looks at the Clippers and goes, wait, how'd they get all these guys? And it's like, well, they're in L.A. They're a super team. I think they're the last of the super teams. And again, if they lose to the Mavericks and if the Suns lose to the Timberwolves, I think we're going to see a new era in the NBA, which is, you can't afford it anymore. Certainly people are going to try, but you can't really afford it anymore. All right, coming up next, we wrap up hour number 2. It is a segment we call Stuff I Saw on the Internet. Very rarely do I have my mind blown. Brenden, my mind was blown yesterday. I'll tell you what I saw, and I'm curious if your mind was blown as well. Talk about it next, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, time to wrap up hour number 2. It's a segment we call Stuff I Saw on the Internet. Each and every day, I am on the Internet far too much, more than I wish I was. I can only share so much before my wife gets annoyed with me. So I have started this segment where I just bring up stuff I saw on the Internet that I'm fascinated. Now, very rarely is my mind blown. There are certain things that maybe I don't agree with, but I go like, I could see how you could get there, but I'm not necessarily my cup of tea. Ketchup on hot dogs, right? We talked about this this week, last week, either way. Ketchup on hot dogs. It's not my thing, but I could see how you could get there. But yesterday I saw something on the internet that blew my mind. And actually it was very appropriate as to what was going on. And I wasn't seeking this out. It was almost like the internet knew, Brenden. It was almost like the internet knew I needed this information in my life. Now, I have gotten, believe this is a iPhone 13. I think that's what I got.
Me too.
We're up to 15 now, I think is where. So I've realized that after about 2 more iPhones after your iPhone, and as much TikTok scrolling as I do, battery starts getting low on me. So I've noticed my battery life isn't exactly what it used to be. So I do things that I normally thought would save battery life. Brenden, if you had your phone and you were noticing battery was running a little bit short, other than plugging it in, what would be the first thing you would do? I'm just curious.
Turn on power saving mode.
What would be the next thing you would do? Would you go in and close out your apps?
Yeah.
Yeah, so would I.
Yeah.
You go in and you close out your apps.
I keep like only 1 or 2 open.
Closing out iPhone apps actually makes your battery life worse. I learned this on the internet yesterday and my mind is blown.
Are we sure that's true?
Apple.com is where I went to the source, Brenden. I went to the source. This is discussions.apple.com on the community board. This is from a guy named Lawrence Finch, who's a level 10 Apple guy. Assume that's very big. It's common belief that you should close apps running in the background to improve performance and save battery life. Unfortunately, this is a myth. It is not true in almost all situations. You should only close an app in the quick launch. That's the whoop, 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 whoop. That's pretty. People know what I mean when I go whoop, whoop. In the quick launch screen, if it is misbehaving, not working, freezing. First and foremost, apps are not running in the background. When they're in the background and you're not using them, they are suspended. It doesn't do any good. There's nothing to be gained. This is where I actually had my mind blown yesterday. It does not make your phone faster. It actually makes it slower because it takes longer to initialize an app from storage than to restart it from the suspended state. So when you do the whoop, 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 you are shutting down the app, much like, I don't know what it is anymore, but back in the day, there was the whole thought of starting your car burned more gas than leaving it running. I think it's kind of that theory. It does not help battery life. To get an idea of how little would be saved by closing apps, you can use the settings of the battery described here. What this doesn't show is that it actually worsens battery life because it takes more energy to load an app than to restart it from the multitasking screen.
No idea.
It does not clean up RAM memory. iOS is the expert about managing RAM. Neither you nor any cleanup app can possibly outthink the operating system and do it. But Brenden, I saw this yesterday. My mind blown. Not only that, I think we all owe an apology to anyone we've ever shamed for having apps open in the background. We've done it. We've all done it. You know you've done it. I know I've done it. I know that I have. I've grabbed my wife's phone and she's like, it's not. And I go, of course it's not working. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Look at all this stuff you got open. We were wrong. Brenden, we were wrong. Is your mind blown?
A little bit.
Yeah. Up is down, black is white. Like what else do we not know about these things that we are on every single day?
I'll say this: it's not quite as mind like you. Like you basically sounds like this. Like battery life is something that impacts you throughout the day.
Well, it does now because here's the other thing that I know for sure, and I think we've actually learned they haven't officially. They cannibalize their things so that a new iPhone's coming out and the battery starts dying. So I'm close to that. Because I think I've had this for a couple of years. It seems to be on a 2-year loop that after a certain amount of years, all of a sudden, your battery just keeps getting drained and drained and drained, which happened to me yesterday. Now, it's probably because I'm also on TikTok too much. So I'm sitting there and I'm doing my that's my TikTok scrolling. It's different than the whoop, whoop, whoop. So I'm doing my TikTok scrolling, and all of a sudden I'm like, 27%. Got to plug it in. And I'm, all right, I'm burning up batteries. I better clean out all the apps. I was burning battery life the entire time. The entire time. It wasn't saving energy, and it's not making my phone work faster. Turns out we were all making our phones work slower. I'm not closing out anything anymore. Unless you need to restart it, which that happens to me every once in a while too. When I'm on the streaming apps. But I saw that yesterday and I was like, very rarely. Because usually like you'll hear something you're like, didn't think of that. That makes sense. Our entire lives, we were closing out apps left and right, thinking that we are doing the right thing. Our entire life, we were mocking and probably making fun of our parents who had, look at all these apps you've got open. No wonder your phone's not working. Or maybe our significant others as well. Turns out they were the ones that were right.
Yeah, this is interesting.
We were the ones that were wrong.
Yeah, this is it's super interesting because I can't say recently I've ran into this problem since this latest. Like, I think I've told you the story, Justin, where a couple years ago I had the old phone battery died when I was at SoFi Stadium in Las Vegas.
Yes.
Or Los Angeles.
Los Angeles.
And needed I'm like, how do I Uber? So since that moment, I got a new phone and I haven't had the battery come to that point yet.
Not yet.
But yeah, the apps, it's been that way for as long as we can remember iPhones.
Yeah.
So that part's a little surprising to me. I'm surprised
this is like for me, this is like the phone version of you can't go swimming until an hour after you eat. Like we all just believed it.
Yes.
We all just believed that you have to close out your apps. That's what's slowing your phone down.
And speaking of this,
it's not true.
Speaking of this too, Justin, maybe we'll get to it for later today or tomorrow. Did you see that on top of this, Apple is being taken to court over the green text messages
for discrimination?
Essentially, yes. So we'll have to basically it's they've come out and said that Apple treats those people with green messages, images come in more pixelated, you can't see someone, and apparently that is
the group chats are a mess.
That's discriminating.
Anybody that's ruined a group chat with a green bubble.
So apparently,
you know who you are.
Apple has the ability to just flick a switch and everybody would be blue. And apparently that's why they're saying Apple's a monopoly. So keep an eye out.
It could have been having blue bubbles
for years.
The whole time.
Yep.
Just flip
that's
of a
Apple
switch.
for you, man.
This closing out the apps things freaked me out yesterday. Had to bring
it's
it
nuts.
up. There you go. There's stuff we saw on the internet. We've got hour number 3, Tyson Alger. We got the RCM mailbag. Ooh, I've got a great basketball conspiracy theory as well coming up next. 620 Rip City Radio. It is 8 a.m. on a Wednesday morning. Justin Myers with you. The Heisman Trophy Trust has pulled a 180 on Reggie Bush and has officially reinstated his 2005 Heisman Trophy. Reggie Bush now will be welcome back to all Heisman Trophy activities, including future Heisman Trophy presentations. NBA last night saw the home teams finally go down as the Indiana Pacers took down the Milwaukee Bucks 125-108, 37 points for Pascal Siakam. And the Dallas Mavericks went to Crypto.com Arena and took down the Clippers with Kawhi Leonard 96-93. Both of those series evened up at a game apiece. Meanwhile, the Timberwolves get the win at the Target Center. They are now up 2-0 on the Phoenix Suns. Coming up in hour number 3, Tyson Alger is going to join the show from the I-5 corridor. Also, speaking of the Suns, I heard fantastic basketball conspiracy theory. We'll talk about that next. 620 Rip City Radio. Hey, welcome back to Rip City Mornings, everybody. As I just told you in the update, but you know what? It's worth repeating. Our good friend Tyson Alger from the I-5 corridor is going to be joining us. Oregon's got a spring game on Saturday. It's going to be a post-game concert. Might rain. Who knows? Also, Civil War baseball this weekend? Are they leading the conference, both teams?
Bad weekend for the Beavs. They got swept by Cal. So that was not a good weekend for the Beavs.
And I saw Oregon lost the series to Stanford.
But right now you've got a Oregon State and Oregon are both tied for second in the conference. So a lot on the line.
Who's leading the conference?
Arizona's 13-5. 13-5. Beavers, Utah, and Oregon State, USC too, all about 10-7 or 11-7. So really,
a big baseball series coming up.
It's huge for both teams because
is it Goss?
Yeah, if Oregon wins, they've got a huge series win against a notable team. It'll jump them up in the rankings. And Oregon State, Justin, the boat has taken on some water, so they needed
really.
It was a bad weekend. They beat.
Well, they don't get swept very often in conference play.
No, they had lost 4 in a row, which for Oregon State baseball, they bounced back. Nice win over Portland at Ron Tonkin Field last night. But yeah, big baseball series. So maybe we'll be catching up with someone to talk about it tomorrow. We'll see.
All right, we'll see what Tyson Alger has to say as well. He's going to be joining us in a handful. We got the RCM mailbag draft coming up on Thursday as well. But I heard this NBA conspiracy theory that I think is great. First off, we'll give credit where credit is due. I heard this. This was on Pardon My Take, podcast Pardon My Take. Let me throw out the scenario, Brenden. Tell me what you think about this. Let's just say that the Minnesota Timberwolves win their first round series against the Phoenix Suns in 5 games, right? Let's say they win it in 5 games. Let's say the Oklahoma City Thunder win their series, move on. I believe then they would match up against the winner. I think they would match up against the Timberwolves in that scenario. No, they would match up with the winner against Dallas and Los Angeles. And the Oklahoma City Thunder get to the Western Conference Finals where they lose, let's say, 6 games to the Denver Nuggets. Brenden, as you have told me multiple times, Oklahoma City's got a lot of draft picks. Still, they've got a lot of draft picks.
Probably the most of anybody, I would guess.
That Paul George trade still has draft picks on draft picks on draft picks. And here's the other thing that we know, that the Phoenix Suns are paying a lot of money and are in the second apron. And if they go down without a fight in the first round, and the Oklahoma City Thunder make it to the Western Conference Finals and lose to the Denver Nuggets. Conspiracy theory. Brenden, does this pave the way for Kevin Durant to come back to Oklahoma City to make his career full circle? The Oklahoma City Thunders will be a player away. They would have multiple draft picks to trade to the Phoenix Suns.
And they could give them young pieces, too.
And potentially give them young pieces. And here, adding to the conspiracy theory, Chet Holmgren's got a new Nike deal. And Chet Holmgren is wearing, I believe, Kevin Durant lined shoes. There's that. Also, here's the other thing. Kevin Durant has the unique ability to essentially be immune to the criticism that he's a bandwagon guy. Why? Because he's already done it 3 times. He was at Oklahoma City. He was the MVP of the league. You're the real MVP. And was like, I don't want to do it with Russ. Boom. I want to go to a different team. Which team do you want to go to? The best one. And I'm just going to play for the best one. So he's already done it once. And then when he got tired of being there in Golden State, was like, all right, I want to go to another team. The best one in the East or the team with the most talent in the East? Sure. Yep. I'll jump on that bandwagon. Then when that thing fell apart, he's like, yeah, I demand a trade with 3 years left on my deal. Well, where do you want to go? I want to play in Phoenix with Devin Booker. Okay. Like he's the only thing that would stop this from happening next year would be maybe a player going like, I don't know if I want to be accused of just ring chasing. Well, Kevin Durant's been ring chasing for years. Even though he's got 2 rings. Yeah. He's immune to the criticism. Charles Barkley calls him the bus rider, not a bus driver. And it's like, well, it's still Kevin Durant. I love this conspiracy theory. I think this happens. The only reason this doesn't happen is if Phoenix bounces back, beats Minnesota, and they make a run to the Western Conference Finals. Brenden, your thoughts?
I'm looking at right now how the Thunder have 13 first-round picks over the next 4 years. So that's
exactly,
and then it keeps going. Like it probably about 16.
And if you're Oklahoma City and you've got Shea's not going anywhere, Chet's not going anywhere. Let's say you're one player away.
So here's
why not bring in Kevin Durant?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're
getting a little out ahead of our skis because we're still in the first round.
No,
but I love this conspiracy theory.
It's a sexy idea, Justin. I mean, it really is. Like, I'm tantalized just thinking about it.
I wish I came up with it. This was not mine. I have lifted this. I'm sampling this. Interpolation, I think is what they call it now. Didn't they? It used to just be called sampling. Yeah. Now it's called interpolation.
So when I look at the Thunder, this is oddly attainable because they have such a cheap roster with so many rookies.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like
if you're Phoenix, you want something for the future.
Yeah, so like after this year, the Thunder suddenly are going to have $30 million available because Gordon Hayward's not going to be back. So again, when you have Chet Holmgren on a rookie deal, Josh Giddey on a rookie deal, both Jalen Williamses, I know, they're exactly the same, on rookie deals. And, I mean, it's L or Y, right?
I know, it's so hilarious. They have 2 Jalen Williams.
Exactly. So when you look at that and you're like, okay, maybe, they still would have to give them something. Mm-hmm. But if they could protect, let's just say Shea and Chet, everyone else could be on the table.
Yeah.
I would do this in a heartbeat because you could restock Phoenix's draft picks. Would they be like, yes? And I mean,
you bring in Kevin Durant full circle.
Yeah. Now, granted, when
and then you get the whole, hey, he left and then came back,
it was
and now
ugly.
all is well. And then Durant gets a chance to like say, hey, I'm ending where I started. I want to retire. Thunder. I want to have my number up. I want 35 up in the. What is it? It used to be the Wachovia set?
Still a Chesapeake.
The
peak. Yep, still the peak.
Thunder Alley, you get the whole full circle moment.
Technically, Justin, for him to retire with his team, it would need to retire with the Seattle Supersonics.
That's true.
Since that was a real thing.
Maybe they'll put 35 up in the Climate Pledge rafters.
There's Kevin Durant in a green, beautiful Supersonics jersey before they
were nice jerseys.
I love the Sonics. I mean,
they went away. They got some ugly ones for a couple years. Almost every franchise, I think, oddly enough, except the Portland Trailblazers. Every franchise in the NBA has, I have made multiple admissions on this show that, Brenden, I have had my fair share of phases. I was in 8th grade, had a bit of a grunge phase, grew my hair out long, wore flannels. It was the time. In college, I had a very big D-bag phase. Almost every NBA team goes through a phase. And the Sonics did that. The Sonics had the great uniforms of the early to mid 90s with Sean Kemp and Gary Payton. And then they went with red, like a red and navy blue and a they said they had their phase. They had their phase in college. Like when I was wearing popped Abercrombie collars and wearing distressed visors backwards, that's what the Sonics were doing. Like the Golden State Warriors have had their fair share of
They used to be orange.
of faces.
Yeah, they used to be orange. I mean, to your point, it's true. And I think it is real because you go look for a Kevin Durant Sonics jersey, it's a couple $100. So it's.
But then they got back to it though when they got Durant. Then ultimately they would lose their franchise.
Yeah.
But they went back to the arch, like the green arch.
Yeah.
So like that's how
That
they
just
should
said, like,
always be. But
Seattle, so
like
cool.
other NBA teams, like they had a phase.
Yeah, I would say that the only reason I say maybe no, because I love this idea in the aggregate. I just wonder.
You love saying in the aggregate.
I know, right? If Justin, I know we really have to jump back in the Wayback Machine, but jump with me here and try to remember 4th of July, 2016, when we all woke up to I think it was Kevin Durant announcing in the Players Tribune that he was going to be.
Whatever happened to the Players Tribune?
It's still around, but not quite what it was.
Boy, that was going to take us all out of business,
was.
remember?
The Tribune,
all
man.
the
Everybody.
media
Yep.
be so afraid because the players, turns out they learned what a blog was.
Exactly.
They're going to, there's cheaters behind it. It's like,
but it was bad. When
Jeter
Durant
might not be a very good businessman.
When Durant went to go join a 73-win team, I mean, we know it broke the NBA, and unless you were a Warrior fan, you hated it.
Yeah, everybody hated it.
And, it
was absurd.
Looking back, and Justin, don't you remember Oklahoma City fans burned KD's jersey?
Yeah, but
mean,
they burned LeBron's jersey in Cleveland, and then they brought him back.
That's
and
true,
he won
but-
a championship, and everybody was forgiven.
LeBron, KD. I mean, LeBron's a little better than KD. I mean, this is interesting.
Yeah, a little bit, but I think they're on the same level.
Wavelength. Yeah.
They're at the same table at the restaurant.
Can Kevin Durant be a bus leader?
Oh, here we go again.
I'm
with that.
right. I don't know. Did Steph Curry?
But he's already crossed that bridge of like, well, he joins super team. Like he's already done that. All right.
Good point.
But we'll see what happens this summer. Coming up, Tyson Alger's going to join the show. Also, we've got an RCM mailbag. Before we do all that, I do want to tell you again about DeBella. That's right. Roofing, siding, windows, bath experts. You've probably seen their work. Better Homes and Garden, HGTV. They're the ones at an elite level as well. They're at the LeBron level. Plus, award-winning customer service. 15,000 plus 5-star reviews. That number keeps growing more and more each and every day. But 15,000 plus 5-star reviews on Google. And you might be saying, Justin, well, if it's got these accolades and it's got all these great reviews, this is probably going to cost me an arm and a leg. Well, how about this? No payments until 2025. And that entire time, you are potentially saving money on your energy bills. Maybe going with solar might be the right way to go for you. Potentially pay for a brand new roof with solar shingles, with savings to your energy bill and federal and state incentives. All you got to do is contact DeBella for all the details. Their estimates are always free, convenient, scheduled on a time that works for you. So check out DeBella today for a free, no-obligation appointment for roofing, windows, siding, and bath projects. Proud supporter of Operation Homefront, DeBella. In eighth grade, supposed to read the book Tale of Two Cities. Watch the movie. Think I got called out by Mr. Bayless, but I do know about Tale of Two Cities, which is it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. I think that might be an appropriate distinction upon Corvallis and Eugene right now with regard to the spring football attendance, because joining us now, friend of the program from the I-5 corridor, a man who a lot of people don't know this, Brenden. A lot of people don't understand this. I do, because I am a close friend, that our next guest actually has a bit of a history of Twitter and photos of empty seats in stadiums. Tyson Alger back on the big show. Good morning, Tyson. How are we doing?
I'm doing good. I would like to make a statement to begin the show. The photo that I took of the Oregon State spring game, mind you, I said nothing about the crowd. I said nothing about comparing it to Oregon. I do understand that I have an Oregon-leaning audience that, had a high likelihood of sweeping that up. But my only intentions were to take a photo to prove that I was working on a Saturday. That's all it was. Like there was nothing nefarious there. Like I was enjoying my Oregon State spring game. It was a light crowd. Oregon State does have a history of having light spring game crowds. We can get into if that's important or not. Mm-hmm. But that thing had some legs to it.
It really did. Some may say, I don't understand why reporters decide to tweet about lack of crowd size, which you did not do. You just tweeted a picture. But that's a discussion for another day, or maybe even off the air, go terms of some of the fun times in years past. But go ahead.
Well, I was going to say there was no meal this time to, be enjoying in our free seats at the spring game. But again, that's a different story.
So you simply tweeted out a picture of Reser Stadium, and you say spring game in Corvallis. And, of course, then it became a whole thing because, Twitter is just a disgusting, dirty swamp of a kiddie pool in the backyard that all of us voluntarily decide to get into. But then the part that I love, Tyson, is somebody wanted to play the game, right? And say, "Wow, you clearly distorted it. You are it under the cover is where all the fans were." And then, we got another picture from another angle. That was where I felt some Tyson snark coming out, which was appropriate and necessary.
I would like to make statement number 2. I got that reply to my tweet as I was walking down the concourse of the stadium. So I was it's not like the photo that I was taking was necessarily in a better cause to help illustrate his angle, but I just saw his reply and I sent the next picture that was in my camera roll. And there was people at the game, but it just didn't happen to be in any of the photos that I happened to choose to post online.
All right, Tyson Alger from the I-5 corridor. All right, let's dive into it because it has become kind of a thing. We talked about it on our show on Monday. Brenden was there with you guys in the press box hanging out. I know Bill Oram, your Montana Grizzly brethren, wrote I thought a very good column about it, and it has been one of those things. I mentioned it years before conference realignment, Tyson, that I've always thought that not having a spring game and not having a showcase and a culture-building event for your fan base there in the spring and a chance to grow your fan base was always a missed opportunity. But as Brenden informed me, and you mentioned it earlier, this is nothing new in Corvallis, right? It seems like, they're left out of the Big Ten and the Big 12. Everybody's transferring out of the program. And look, nobody showed up for their spring showcase, but it's also kind of always been that way in April in Corvallis.
Oregon State isn't going to come out of this by being like the guy at the middle school dance that's hiding in the corner, waiting for a girl to pity him to ask him to dance. Business as usual isn't I don't think that's the way to approach this. And I understand the dynamics of Oregon's been turning their spring game into what it is for the better part of the last 15 years, and you can't just make that happen overnight. But like this is like it's a free pep rally. It's a way to it's a way to get a message out to your fan base to celebrate what you're doing, to basically like just get some momentum going. And it doesn't necessarily have to be 40,000 people into a stadium, but like this, I've been to like some Oregon in the past couple of years. They did like an open scrimmage midway through the season, and this definitely had, or midway through the spring, and this definitely had more of those vibes. And like that's fine, and if that's how it's worked in Corvallis in the past, that's perfectly fine. But what you've done in the past is also kind of probably helps not necessarily lead you into this situation, but like you have to be different now. You have to attack instead of just waiting for things to happen. And I just thought that this was an opportunity, especially after the couple of weeks that Oregon State's had with the basketball transfers, with Damian Martinez leaving. I just thought it was like a good opportunity to get like the fans like riled up and like to celebrate Oregon State football and the university. And I'm not saying it was a bad time by any stretch of the imagination, but like I thought Bill Orum's column was spot on.
I'm with you because, and I always hesitate to tell Oregon State fans or Oregon State Athletic Department what to do because they all hate me, which I get. Had a nice complex history with Oregon State, but it did seem like you just said, we've talked about the missed opportunity, and it didn't have to be a game, right? Because I think that's what most people will come as like, well, I didn't have enough players. Everybody's in the transfer portal. They didn't have enough offensive linemen. Well, it doesn't have to be a game, but like you said, it could be a pep rally. Get on the horn. Get Terry Baker down there. Mike Riley was there, but it wasn't really advertised. I know that Steven Jackson is a big part of the collective there. Have Team Steven Jackson versus Team Jaquiz Rogers. I know that because I am friends with Oregon State alumni. I know that there is a fan base that kind of wants to shake their fist and be like, hey, we're still here. I felt like that's what it should have been. It's like, hey, we're still here. We still have a history. We still have a past. You guys love all these players. Come see them. Come hang out. And it's going to be a showcase, but you might be able to get a picture with Steven Jackson. How awesome would that be?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I do understand that athletic department is fighting a billion different fights right now, but
yeah.
And maybe there's certain things that they have to like hold into the chamber for like during the actual season. But I completely agree with you. One of the things that we have seen Oregon do in the past is like as you said, you've had like Team Mariota versus Team Ifo Ekbre-Olumu, or they'll have like the entire month leading up to the game, like announcing like which alumni are going to be there. And it's never a good game. Like I hate the spring game. I'm advocating for more spring game, even though I personally, it's like my least favorite thing to cover at this job, but it's important. And, you can point to, I think Oregon State fans like to point to, the NIL and all the money and all that sort of stuff that Oregon has, but like, not a lot of that stuff takes a whole lot of extra dime. I just think it's just kind of forcing your brand down everyone else's throat. And while it might seem obnoxious from an Oregon standpoint, like it's absolutely needed. And I just thought that like I would have loved to see some of the people who have talked so fondly about Oregon State represented out there, or at least have some sort of message to get out there.
Tyson Alger from the I-5 corridor joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. And we go from one end of the extreme to the other. So let's head down the I-5 corridor, Tyson, because Eugene is going to have a spring game on Saturday. And I think in the transfer portal era and the fact that, look, Oregon is pretty famous about having very closed doors, very tight-lipped, right? They don't whether it was the Chip Kelly era or the Cristobal era, or the fact that when they built the Hatfield-Dowling complex and the new practice facilities, they put like a security berm up so that nobody can get in and get anything. So usually you have to kind of take those opportunities. And now with the transfer portal era, I think for Oregon fans, yeah, it's going to be a spring game. Should stay dry, hopefully. Not going to be great weather, but It's going to be your first time seeing Dylan Gabriel throw passes in an Oregon uniform. It's going to be your first time seeing Dante Moore throw some passes in an Oregon uniform. And I remember 2 years ago how big of a deal it was because Bo Nix went into the spring game and everybody was like, oh, yeah, this guy's awesome. We might be pretty good.
Yeah, but then all it took was like that first game against Georgia, and everyone's like, "This guy's terrible."
Yeah.
So it's there.
Well,
I think it was maybe. I think it was last year on the corridor. I went back and did a story looking at whether or not like a spring production has actually led to like on-field results, and it's pretty streaky. Like I think I remember I wrote like a massive Dante Thornton profile 2 years ago, and then he ended up right in the transfer portal come fall. So that being said, I'm really looking forward to just watching these quarterbacks. I don't have a lot of questions surrounding Dylan Gabriel. I think he's going to be pretty darn productive. I would be thrilled if he's Bo Nix, but I would be thrilled if he's like 80% of Bo Nix because Bo Nix was really good last year. And if you can match that some similar sort of production while upping the skill players around him, I think Oregon's going to be in a good spot. But this is your quarterback. This is the guy you're going to be watching for the next 12 months up until he's taken into the draft next year. And it's just we haven't been able to see him do anything really in practice. And so I think just kind of like getting used to that throwing motion, getting used to, like the connections that he has with like Tez Johnson and Trayshawn Holden and some of those other receivers. And then to also see what Dante Moore has behind him, because I think this is such a unique position that the Ducks are in with quarterback right now, where they have the guy, they have a stud for this year, and they do have a very, very, very highly recruited sophomore waiting in the wings behind them. So it's going to be a fun showcase to see for potentially the next 3 years as signal callers for Oregon there.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because like critics, like I know obviously Oregon State and I think USC, because USC had a less than stellar out showing at their spring game, and I know the critics will come out and like, well, it doesn't matter, and if you care about the spring game, it just shows that that your program is on the decline. There's a lot of excuses to why, but like everything else in college football, Tyson, that perception can become reality. I very much remember 2012 Oregon spring game, and we finally got to see this Hawaiian kid named Marcus that everybody was talking about at practice. And he came in, and he was wearing a red jersey, and he scored a touchdown that probably would have been an 8-yard carry, but they couldn't touch him. And all of a sudden, the legend of Marcus Mariota grew right there, spring game. Like, I think Bo Nix a couple years ago, whether that's going to be Dylan Gabriel, but we've seen, I'm with you, like the productivity, I could name guy after guy after guy. I was like, oh boy, spring game hero. I expect a lot from him. And then either transfer portal or the guy never plays. But it does get to be, and I think coaches who are savvy, and I think Dan Lanning is, can be kind of manipulated a little bit to be like, hey, check out this guy. You've been hearing about him. Now let's put him in the position to where he's going to look really, really good, whether that is actually productive or not.
I wrote a real nice Taylor Alley profile. What had that been, like 8 or 9 years ago, going into the spring game? And then I think he did have a nice spring game, and he wasn't quite the next Marcus. But,
yeah.
I mean, like the whole strategy of the spring game is interesting too, especially in this portal era, because it's like, let's say you have a hidden gem on your bench, and he's going to be good in a year or two, but you really want him to like go out in the spring game and catch 10 passes and have 2 touchdowns and have him on the radar suddenly of everyone else on the country. I mean, that's kind of a bit of what we heard Urban Meyer saying a couple of weeks ago when he dropped in on Ducks practice, and they weren't really running like a 1, 2, and 3 on the depth chart. It was they were doing it. You're all the different colors, and they were kind of mixing and matching. So like there's so much more gamesmanship in this now. And while I do think like college football coaches' contracts are still like way too exuberant, they do have to like deal with so much more stuff now, especially around the year, than even coaches did like 10 years ago. It's pretty insane.
Real quick anecdote, my favorite spring game moment, and it isn't really very positive for Oregon, but Chip Kelly came in, and after year one of Chip Kelly, he made some changes to the coaching staff. One of those changes was he fired receivers coach Robin Pflugrad. Just so happened that Aaron Pflugrad was also on the team, different era with transfers. Aaron Pflugrad went out, and he must have had 187 yards and 3 touchdowns in the spring game. then transferred the next day, and it was the best double bird to Chip Kelly, which again I can respect all of that. One last thing, Tyson, before we let you go, I got the draft coming up in a couple of days. Bo Nix looking like a first rounder, may or may not, but I think more likely than not going to be going in the first round. And obviously, there's a history of Oregon fans kind of following quarterbacks into the NFL. I'm not saying he's going to touch Justin Herbert level fandom or anywhere even close to the Joey Harrington effect that we saw in the early 2000s. But I'm wondering, what do you think the connection's going to be with Oregon fans and Bo Nix as he heads into the NFL?
I think it's going to be pretty strong. I mean, Bo talks pretty darn fondly about his time at Oregon, and he's played the rails pretty well too, and kind of balancing that with he still obviously has a lot of history with Auburn, but I think ultimately, let's say he's a success in the NFL and they're going back and showing college highlights, like heading into a big game. Like it's probably going to be the Oregon story is like the upswing of that. And I think Oregon fans take probably a lot of pride in the fact that, his stock rose when it was combined with the Oregon brand there. So I think he'll be looked. I think that'll be a pretty strong connection. I also think I'm still not set on whether or not Bo Nix is going to be like a great NFL starting quarterback, but I get the sense that he's at least going to be like a 10 years in the league guy.
Yeah.
I just think that if anything, he could be like a Ryan Fitzpatrick type of backup guy that can just go around and kind of, with his stability and athletic skills too. I just see him sticking around for quite a bit.
Tyson Alger from the I-5 Corridor. You can follow him on Twitter at Tyson Alger. You need to be subscribing to the I-5 Corridor. What do we got? What do we got coming up on the corridor other than hot spring game coverage?
I got nothing coming up, but I do have one quick story about making Oregon fans angry at a spring game if I have time. It was the 2021 spring game. No fans allowed in the stands, yet they still did a flyover. And I tweeted why are they doing a flyover with no fans in the stands? And then I got all of Air Force Twitter in my mentions saying that they have to do the training runs anyways, and yada yada yada. Anyways.
We're doing a lot of weird stuff in 2021, Tyson, right? We're going to look back on that and have to explain that one on both sides. We're doing a lot of weird stuff. Flyovers with empty stadiums. Cardboard cutouts, though, probably in said stadium. Enjoyed that flyover that we paid probably $50 to have a cardboard cutout because, they needed the money. All right. Hey, Tyson, have a terrific week. Look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, absolutely, buddy.
There you go. Tyson Alger. Brenden, you got to watch out for Air Force Twitter. I mean, that whole Top Gun Maverick thing, except for that was Navy, though. Maverick was in the Navy. But, yeah, Air Force Twitter, plus Oregon Twitter. We're doing a lot of weird stuff in 2021, Hey, would you like to pay $100 for your cardboard cutout to be at the game? I think I should. All right. We've got the RCM mailbag as we wrap up the big Wednesday edition. Next, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, time to wrap up the big show. We do that the same way each and every day with the RCM mailbag. By the way, I didn't think about that because, again, sometimes I just don't think about stuff. If you're like Oregon or like USC or probably not even those programs, but if you are, let's say if you're like Oklahoma State or Cincinnati, you got like a freshman or a sophomore who you're like, man, this guy is going to be really good. I'm kind of with Tyson, like, yeah, you're not playing in the spring game. There's no way you are going to showcase and show everybody how good you are. And then all of a sudden the NIL boosters start circling and start offering you a bag, and because the spring window is still open. I mean, I didn't even think about that. Could you imagine, like, oh, you're a third string running back at Oregon. You want to come to UCLA for a big bag and play number one? Yeah, let's tamp down all the touches for Johnson over there. We don't need anybody. But then also you want to showcase your program. Tough times for college coaches. You know, that's why they get paid the big bucks, Brenden. You know why we get paid the big bucks? Entertainment like the mailbag. Here we go.
All right, so Justin, I believe earlier in the show you said you had something you wanted to circle back around to in the mailbag.
If I did, I certainly don't remember.
Okay, there's no worries. I
certainly don't remember.
I had a little note here. I said Justin mailbag, so maybe it was something we said in the 6, but nevertheless, we can go ahead and get into the mailbag.
Yeah, I got nothing.
I swear you're like, oh yeah, we'll talk about that in the mailbag, and you know maybe it'll come to you on your drive home. Watch,
probably will.
You'll be
probably
like,
will.
Yeah, I remember that now. But nevertheless, Justin, let's go ahead and open up the mailbag today. Let's start with food, since you know I love to do that. Shout out me and you, because I know we like to watch the show. New season of Food the Build America is out.
Yeah.
And caught a couple episodes. Most notably, the one on Hot Pockets, Justin.
I have not seen the Hot Pocket one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty cool, must say. And again, if you're into food, into nerd history, kind of like Justin and I are, you will love the show. It's super awesome. Now, I'll say this. Justin, I didn't know this. They claim that Hot Pocket has over 30 flavors.
Okay, there's two.
So let's talk about this, and I'm curious where you are on Hot Pockets 1.
Maybe like the Hot Pockets of the 2020s are like the Oreo cookies of the 2020s, which is like, oh, we got birthday cake. We got cherry cola flavored. We got, like, maybe that's it. Back in my day, Brenden, you got two. You got two Hot Pockets. There was pepperoni pizza, and there was ham and cheese. That was it. Ham and cheddar, pepperoni pizza. That was it. That was all. Then the marketing geniuses said, let's do lean pockets. And they put broccoli in one. It would put broccoli and cheddar, I think, was in the lean pockets. Never mind that you're eating cheese and carbs and it has nothing. And
it's lean, Justin.
It was the time we were living in the 90s where it was just like, let's just take the meat out of it. It's like, turns out the protein was maybe the best part of it, but you took it out. And you kept the carbs and the cheese. But yes, the only Hot Pockets I recognize are pepperoni pizza and ham and cheese. That is it. That is all. That is the only Hot Pockets I will recognize. What else could they possibly have? I'm sure there's probably a buffalo chicken in there. Do you have the list in front of you of the 30 Hot Pocket flavors?
Yeah, so no, I haven't been able to quite find all of them, but I found like a good 20 of them.
Let's hear them out.
Beef taco.
All right.
Cheddar cheeseburger Hot Pockets with crispy buttery crust.
Okay. Also, the crust is never crispy nor buttery. It's a microwave pastry, and it's fun. Again, Hot Pockets are exactly what they are supposed to be. You grab them out of the freezer. You throw them in the sleeve. I don't know if the sleeve ever did anything, the little cardboard sleeve. I don't know if that actually ever did anything. Don't care. I did it anyways because it came with it. You popped it in there for 3 minutes, and you had a scorching hot, burn the roof of your mouth, then kind of cold when you get to the middle. Pepperoni pizza, which if you were 13, it was the best thing ever.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would have two.
Yeah, no, you're totally on. And
Family would get a box from Costco, right? Costco box.
So I learned from the
Pop them in.
Yeah, from the doc, Justin, that crisping thing was their key to success. If you try to microwave a Hot Pocket without that metal sleeve, supposedly it won't work. So that's talked about a lot in that.
Has anybody ever tried?
Good question.
Has anybody ever tried? I mean, it's just there.
I went through my Hot Pocket phase in like kind of middle school. Not so
middle
much.
school.
Middle school, high school. Oddly enough, Justin, I didn't buy a lot of Hot Pockets when I went to like the frozen store at college.
Let's do top tier. I did a lot of Hot Pockets in college. Valset's Dining Hall. I crushed the Hot Pockets. Let's do some tiers real. Top tier, elite level, microwave snacks. Right. Obviously, Hot Pockets. Did you have Bagel Bites?
Yes.
Where are you on Bagel Bites? I'm high on Bagel Bites.
Bagel Bites are good, but they're not as good as Totino's pizza rolls.
Totino pizza rolls are so good.
Pizza. Yeah, it's in one. They talk about Totino's in that one episode too, and
so pizza roll, like Totino's pizza rolls, which by the way, they're better if you bake them. But who got time for that, right? Yeah. If I want pizza rolls, I need.
Justin, I want my pizza rolls.
I need the pizza rolls now. What else is in the microwave? I mean, popcorn, microwave popcorn. That's the OG. We talked about TV dinners earlier.
Yeah,
TV dinners, smidge overrated.
They are. I don't
never really get the proper temperature.
I've never had a TV dinner where it's like,
like I want another one of those.
Yeah, like even as a kid, it's like, oh yeah, they had kid cuisines. I don't know if you ever remember those.
Oh, do I remember kid cuisines?
Yeah, so I would have those, but like it's not like you're like, oh my gosh, I need a second helping. It was so good. It's like, okay, it was frozen food.
How about Stouffer's French bread pizza?
We have those a lot. Actually, those are very common in our
house. Are those elite level or are those just very good? Are they at Hot Pockets level?
They're very good. You have to be careful giving out level. Elite, Justin.
Hot Pockets elite. Pizza rolls elite. I mean, microwave popcorn, that's elite. Just because tradition matters in our ranking system.
So you would not
Am I missing anything here?
No, I think you're on it. Real quick, add another flavor for you. You would not eat the chicken, broccoli, and cheddar Hot Pocket.
That's what it was. That was the lean. It was the lean pot. And it's like, why? There's no way this is working.
Or barbecue recipe beef Hot Pockets with crispy butter.
I have a hard time
believing their beef would be good.
No, the barbecue sauce.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I have a hard time with like generic barbecue sauce. Now that I've had like actual real barbecue sauce.
You've had the goat sauces.
Once you get to the goats, to go backwards is tough. You know what I mean?
They have a chicken pot pie flavor?
See, I would rather just have, now where's the chicken pot pie? I guess you bake a real chicken pot pie.
Yeah, that's going in the oven if you want to.
Because it's got the foil pie tin.
You like a good chicken pot pie?
Haven't had one in a long time.
Can you make
Can't imagine I would not like it. It's creamy, chickeny, cheesy thing in a
Could you make it healthy enough to where you would eat it? Yeah, see, there
No.
you go. There you go. I'm like, is there any way you could make cauliflower crust or nothing?
Not any way, shape, or form. No. See, this is my deal. And again, I don't have anywhere close to enough time. I'm out on the cauliflower crust because if I'm just gonna splurge and eat real crust. If I need to watch my carbs, I'll just have vegetables.
I have a feeling it'll be a minute before you have a Hot Pocket again, though.
It's gonna
maybe ever.
You never know. You never know. Desperate times, desperate measures. Who knows if a Hot Pocket's going to hop into my life? But we'll find out. I had plenty of them, though, in my heyday. All right. Thanks to Tyson Alger from the I-5 corridor. Thanks to super producer Brenden. Thanks to all of you. Have a terrific Wednesday. We're back at it tomorrow morning, bright and early here on 620 Rip City Radio.